think one of my most significant memories is just walking in the door the first time. And just Sherry had kind of lobbed this thing of like, well, I'm the children's pastor, but I'm getting ready to take on a different role. Angie and I got in the car and started driving. And I remember I turned to her and I said, man, those people are really nice. That's just a really cool place. Wouldn't it be neat to like go on staff there and work with some of the people that we know and join in with what they're doing? And we had a really strong sense right off the bat, even though it was a church in a strip mall that was, I don't know, 250, 300 people at the time. We just had a sense that God was going to do something awesome.
I think Joe and I showed up shortly, probably after the core group.
What year was that, Pat?
Well,
96.
it would have been probably about 19 and a half years ago. So we go, and there's like this small room, and there were kids like everywhere. I mean, the kids outnumbered the adults. But it was awesome, and we never left because our grandchildren were there. And of course, everyone that was there was, I mean, how could you not want to stay?
We started going to the church in 2004. The first time I walked into this church, I felt like it was home from the get-go.
Yeah.
And it was interesting. People say, where do you go to church? Well, BCF on Benbrook Highway, 377. Where is that? I said, well, it's between the donut shop and the auto shop.
That's right.
It's in a shopping center. But,
I remember we used to have a lot more fake plants.
Yes.
The fake plants were everywhere.
All across the front. All across
And Tom Jackson with his flowers for every major event. We had
which
all
caused
kinds
Pastor
of...
Jeff to have an allergic reaction.
Yes. This place smelled like a greenhouse, and you walk in and,
Even when I came here, there was a crazy number of kids. I mean, we'd have 100 kids in the whole kids wing with 200 adults in the worship center.
Wow.
We'd have 60-something kids in children's church, just elementary age, packed into a, I don't know, 10 by 18 room or something.
I remember coming in and watching Pastor Jeff plunging a toilet before service. I watched him plunge a toilet, and I watched him change one of those big fluorescent light bulbs on a ladder before the church service started. And I thought, okay, either he's crazy or no one around here wants to work. Or maybe he actually, does care a lot about this church, but I've never seen a senior pastor willing to do the little things to make sure that people are well taken care of.
Pastor Jeff has always been visionary. He's a visionary leader, and he has a very clear vision. And when he hears from God, he's passionate about that. He was easy to follow when we started BCF, and it was easy to follow when the Lord gave him a vision for High Ridge, and there were so many confirmations.
Transitioning from BCF to High Ridge, I think that was probably harder than a lot of us thought it would be. Just the change in dynamic of the church and the growth of the church. And we had lots of new people coming and visiting in that first year and a half.
And even knowing what was coming, it was still difficult.
It was.
The growth
Yeah.
was hard.
It was.
Yeah.
You're talking about the pledge. Jennifer and I, when we did our pledge, we checked the wrong box, and it was the total amount is what we thought, and what we had checked was it was that much for each year, and so we had no idea. I mean, that was just crazy.
The next 40 years, $11 million.
Yeah, and so but you know what? It all worked out, and we talked about that even now. How it didn't take anything away from us, not one single thing, and we paid it. And if I just saw, even today, if I saw that number, and I don't even remember what it was, but I remember thinking, "Why are you kidding?
No,
I told you.
I
You
agree.
sure you heard that, right?" Yeah, but that was a big faith builder for us.
I think that's one of the things that made Pastor Jeff and this church so attractive to me was how kingdom-minded he is and continues to be, and how he's always been so willing to continue. We still do that to this day. We still sow significantly into other churches and other buildings and serve other churches. And that attitude of, it's not about building my kingdom, it's about building the kingdom. And being willing to reach out and help other churches, even in our own lack and our need. Man, that just spoke to me tons about the character of our leadership.
I'm the easy fall guy. But he says, well, let's think about that for a moment. He said, what if we built the church where we didn't care about anything else but just reaching the lost? What if the service was built around watching babies being born, spiritually speaking? What if every message was built to lead people to Jesus, and we didn't care who we upset? We didn't care if we could pay the light bill, but we just went all in on the heart of God to reach lost people. And that was a powerful moment for us, because until that point, we had been the church trying to be the church for all people, trying to be the church
Everybody
that
walking
would
with somebody.
yeah, everybody can do whatever they want.
Right.
Everybody gets a say in how things work, and we didn't want to upset anybody because we're a small church that's growing, but we
Yeah.
don't want to offend anyone. But in the process, we didn't really have an identity.
Right.
Yeah.
And so I think in that moment, that kind of strengthening people for life thing was born,
Yeah.
even if it wasn't articulated as well as it is now.
Right.
But that vision statement at that moment when he said, what if we just went all in on reaching the lost? What if nothing else mattered? What if I didn't care who came from what other church? If I didn't care if they left? I didn't care if Sister so-and-so got upset or if people stopped giving, but we're just going to go for the heart of God, reach lost people, and nothing else matters. And we all started looking at each other because it was like a bright light went off in his head, and it began to go off in ours too. And we thought, that's us. That's who we are. If we're evangelical, then let's be evangelical. Let's go for the lost.
I think for me, two like really pivotal points in our history were when because Pastor Jeff would say this for years, right? Starting at BCF in 06, and then as we transition here in 07, 08, 09, he'd say, listen, this is going to be a safe place for you to bring your unsaved friends.
Right.
And
Yeah.
you bring them here, and I'll present the gospel, and we won't embarrass them.
But that was not true before that.
And
Because we weren't that necessarily. I mean, for family members it
Right.
was. If you were part of the group, yeah, it's
Right.
a great safe place. But honestly, until he began to set the vision for that, we were not a safe place to bring your family and friends because we
Especially
freaked them
unsaved.
out. It was weird.
Well, and
It
I
was
think-
normal to us.
normal to us, weird to everybody else.
Yeah.
I think it took some time, and I think one of the pivotal things for me was when all of a sudden I realized personally, I was raised in church. I mean, I spent I came out of the womb saved, and so I know church life, and I remember when I realized all of a sudden for the first time, probably in 08, that I was no longer embarrassed to invite my friends to church because of the culture that we'd created here at High Ridge. That it wasn't, in the past it was always like, oh, somebody's going to do something weird or it's going to get crazy or whatever. And all of a sudden I was like, man, this is a safe place. And right about that time is when the people in the congregation, after 2 to 3 years of saying it, they really started to hear it and believe it. And
Right.
it started to sink in, and all of a sudden people actually started inviting their unsaved friends to church. Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
And then it just became like this tidal wave. And it was like one Sunday there was one person, and the next Sunday there was 2 people, and then it was like one person in every service, and it just built and built and built. And probably one of my proudest memories as a pastor here is being on staff in that season in 09 and 10 and 11, which were hard economic times as well.
Yeah.
But seeing this just flood of people start coming to the church and being saved and meeting the Lord, and it was incredible.
I think a pivotal moment towards the early days was Bass Hall, Easter at Bass Hall. That was a big day for us where we had our first real major event where we became kind of the Cinderella of the city for just a little bit. I thought for that one moment we got to show people who we were, what we were all about, and what we could do. It helps to encourage me thinking of what the new High Ridge campus is going to be, and when this church gets that in their mindset of what is possible,
Right.
when everyone starts pulling their weight and we become contributors and not just consumers, there's a powerful movement that's going to shake
right.
this city
Yeah.
because the vision is right.
Right.
It's
Yeah.
healthy, it's good, and it has a good solid foundation and DNA. But when they get that in their minds, when they get a glimpse of what this can be, when their lost friends have a safe place to come, when they see that the gospel still works and there is still power here, then this is what Fort Worth needs.
Right.
It's a powerful thing.
It's good.
I think the decision to make a commitment to orphan care was a significant,
Yes.
pivotal moment in the church,
Yeah.
that we're going to care for widows and orphans.
Yes.
Yeah.
And, that whole concept of love God and love people, that it was the manifestation of that in an entirely new way in our congregation. I mean, it had been present and it had been at work, but it just kind of took root. And that was, I think,
Yeah.
a very
Yeah.
pivotal moment in our
Exploded,
congregation as well.
Yeah.
I think another one that just recently is taking place is the growth track.
Yes.
Yes.
Gives people, direction. I think we there for a little bit. I think even some of the younger crowd were thinking, who are we, where are we going? And I think the growth track has enabled them to kind of have something to shoot for.
Yeah. I mean, I can speak to that. Just, I know so many of my friends knowing how to grow with God, because we all want to make a difference in the world. We want our lives to count for something. We want to have something to drive for, but so many of us did not know where to go. And so to be able to clearly lay out and say, hey, you can take this step with God, and then you can step into this in obedience, and you're going to grow with God here, and then if you'll step into this, you're going to continue to grow. And then, you get through the growth track, and then I love that it has that evangelism focus. Okay, now turn around, go get your friends,
go
get
do
them
this with
saved,
somebody else.
get them baptized. And so I love that it wasn't just like, okay, let me grow and become some spiritual giant, but it was like, okay, I'm going to grow, but then how I'm going to grow is by going and getting other people and helping them to grow.
Right.
And so I love that became our culture.
Piggybacking on what Mo said, I think one of the little decisions that was made over the last 5 years that's been life-changing is honing in on, Pastor Jeff and the elders really honing in on our mission being focused on helping churches and children. And the idea that what we were going to do when it came to missions and to reaching out is we're going to plant churches, and obviously that's had a big impact on Tim and others, that we were going to help churches that need to be replanted, that we're going to help churches that were struggling, and then that we were going to have this emphasis, as you said, Michelle, on caring for orphan and vulnerable children. And of course, obviously that's had a major impact on my life, but not just me, the life of the church. I mean, that's really part of our culture now. We have this incredible culture that's growing of orphan care in our congregation, and I'm blown away by the number of young people that are Rebecca's age and younger that are coming up to me and saying, when I get married, I'm going to be a foster parent, I'm going to be an adoptive parent. I've already told my future spouse, I've already told my boyfriend or my fiance that this is their plan. This isn't plan B for us, this is plan A. And it all started with the willingness of our senior pastor to listen to people that cared about this and allow it to take root in his heart, which he'd already had years back. But I remember the first time that we did Orphan Sunday in 2011, and the thing that stood out to me is I was listening to the sermon and I realized I had never once been in church where I'd had somebody stand up in the pulpit and say, hey, church members, you should consider bringing these kids into your homes. The message had always been go overseas and bless an orphanage or something like that, but never was it, hey, listen, there's kids around the world and in our community that need family, and the best place for a kid to be is in a home. And that obviously changed my life, and now I have the privilege of taking what God's done here at High Ridge in the last 6 years and taking that out to all sorts of other churches in Fort Worth and in our area, and to see what God is doing there. I mean, it's been absolutely incredible.
High Ridge and its predecessor, Benbrook Christian Fellowship, was that there was always a ton of kids, and those kids were never just pushed to the side.
Right.
But like I said, it's all hands on deck. Every kid is doing something, and we need your help. So if you're old enough to do this, you're old enough to help with this, it's that passion has never left our DNA and our foundation.
Yeah.
This church has always been a place where young people were valued here.
That's right.
So it's not a church that's built for whoever makes the most money makes the rules, but it's a church for if you want a part, then get in where you fit in. That's
right.
And so Strengthening People for Life has always, it's a universal message, and it goes farther than just someone's age, which is great.
Yeah.
Kids can get a hold of that and realize that I can follow a growth track. I can watch God move in my life, and then I can impact other kids that are my age or younger, and it just makes sense. And it's something that has been foundational, and this principle that's applied, that it continues to just produce so much more fruit. And it's a wonderful thing to see when you see now the third and fourth generation of people that not only get it, the things that were just in someone's heart, that are now have come to produce great fruit from just a small seed. And I can't imagine, at our next campus and what that's going to look like when this thing is full grown.
When we came to the church, my kids were 8 and 10, and now almost 23 and 25, and so they've gone from the kids to young adults.
Yeah.
And for the program that we have, it's just excellent. They look forward to coming to church on Tuesday and to worship and to be with their friends, and they invite their friends. So it's just it's been wonderful to watch them grow with the church, and for the church to be so sensitive to the needs of the kids that are growing.
It really does build on the foundation of Pastor Jeff in his DNA as an encourager.
Right.
He has to encourage, and that's more than anything else, that man is an encourager. And when I first came here, it was off-putting, to say the least. I'd never seen someone that was so encouraging, constantly sowing into you. And I was like, just give me 5 feet and give me some constructive criticism. But he's not that guy. I'm here to encourage you. I'm here to bless you. I'm here to help you. I'm here to show you how to do it. Follow me. And as I follow the Lord, let me just show you.
Yeah.
Let me give you a chance to do it. And not only was he not threatened by people's success, but he was encouraging you along the way to do better and to become more than even you thought you could be. That was a big deal. And so celebrating wins, in my opinion, is just his DNA, his culture becoming our culture, where we begin to celebrate and build on the foundation of always being grateful for what God has done.
That's one of the things that people ask me about this church, and I tell them this is not the guy. This is not a guy here and a different guy over here. He's the same guy where you go,
That's right.
and you don't catch him in a off day.
No.
Right.
No.
That's just him.
Yes.
Cheryl and I talk about it
We do.
often about how blessed we are
Yes.
Yeah.
to
Yes.
have all the you coming up and preaching
Yes.
and you
Yes.
preaching and
Yeah.
Levi and Zach and we just
Drew Jackson.
we're so blessed
I know.
to have
Yes.
that teaching.
And when I got to know him, I realized how much he had given away, how many times he had given away furniture and cars, had given away so much stuff, and God just kept blessing him with
How
more
much the
people.
Lord kept blessing
People
him.
would buy things for him and it'd show up at his house, and
That's
I'd look
right.
at him and he'd smile and he'd say, I can't give it away fast enough. And so I thought that this was a
Was it like
person getting
7 cars, 7, 8 vehicles
Something
they've
like
given away?
ridiculous,
Might be more
just
than that
incredible
now.
faith. If he would say, I know this person needs it, I'm going to bless them with everything I have, and then God begins to bless them with more. And I had this misconception of this pastor as getting rich. I think I even called him at time him and Pastor Donna called him Pastor Ken and Barbie because they look so good. And I thought, here they are getting rich off of all these just normal people. And then I got to know him. I thought nothing could be further from the truth.
That's right.
Because that
That is
man
exactly
gives
right.
and is generous to a fault.
That's
And,
right.
I told myself when I saw him and I saw his children and I saw his heart, I thought if I could raise my children to be like his children, then I've done a good job. And that's what sold me, was not even him or Pastor Don, as awesome as they were, but when I saw the generational product, that not only was he speaking it, but his kids had gotten it. And it was evident in their own lives that they honestly love the Lord. This is not a church that spins off prodigals left and right. Young people don't leave this church, but they are the church.
That's good.
And that had never once occurred to me that was possible. So that was a valuable thing to see, that the idea of who I thought he was, who he actually was, and the seeds that were planted were something so profound.
I've probably known Pastor Jeff for 23 years. I've been here since the first service. I met a man 23 years ago that was the real deal. In other words, I saw the way he treated his kids. I saw the way he loved his wife. I saw a man that served me and my family. Prayed for my business, and when I heard that the Lord had given him a dream to start a church in Benbrook, it's like, man, I'm in. And then from there, dream to start this church. I'm in. Now we got a dream,
Yes.
5,000 reasons,
Yeah.
and I'm in.
Amen.
We have grown up with each other. I mean, it's been over 20 years, and that's getting close to each other.
It's a big chunk of life.
We're family.
We are family, sister. We are.
It's not a perfect church, but it's a healthy church.
Yeah.
And it's a safe place to invite your
good.
friends.
Yeah.